It's the McShay Show presented by FanDuel. You thought December was the most wonderful time of the year? Well, you're wrong. The NFL playoffs are just about here, and there's no better time to bet with America's #1 sportsbook. Bet on new and fun markets like to catch a pass same-game parlays, highest scoring game across the Sunday slate, offensive touchdowns in the next drive, and so much more. The app is safe, secure, and easy to use. And when you win, you'll get paid instantly. Plus, get exclusive offers all playoffs long. So download the app today and bet the playoffs with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 and older and present in select states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. We made some headway with the quarterbacks today, as promised. And NFL teams, they're getting excited about this tight end group, plus a public service announcement for NFL media, agents, and prospects. It's Thursday at the Senior Bowl in just 84 days until the NFL draft. Where's my guy? Muench, you good?
I'm good, man.
All right. Play me my favorite song in that playlist. Let's go. Thursday at the Senior Bowl. We're excited, Muench. I mean, we're wrapping up the first week with the McShay Show at the Senior Bowl, 3 days of practice. Today's Thursday, a lot of installs, specific situations. I was impressed today, a little bit more physical than typically we see, especially from the morning practice. And a lot of the red zone stuff that we promised, which is helpful for us evaluating quarterbacks, kind of the decision-making, tight quarters, quick decisions, and I think we gleaned some positive things from today. Just a reminder, and let's start with this. Thank you for joining us all week. Keep with us through the draft. We got a lot coming up. This is just like when Jim Nagy, the executive director, says the Senior Bowl, the NFL draft starts in Mobile. That's the tagline. He's not kidding. Like, NFL teams are coming in, the coaches are coming in off the season, they're starting to evaluate players. This is kind of the unofficial beginning of the draft process. And from here, we've got the game on Saturday in Mobile, Alabama. Then after that, it's on to what happens is a lot of players go and they train. They get ready for the combine, 40-yard dash, vertical jump, broad jump, 3-cone, all those different events, right? So we'll be with you at the combine in Indianapolis. And between now and then, we'll have our typical shows come out on Monday night. They'll be coming out on Thursday morning. Watch for it and be a part of this with us. But we'll also be going to Indianapolis. We can't miss that. I mean, it's the event. All the NFL teams are there. Information that comes out of there, the numbers that we get. There's so much in terms of the process that we'll have. So we'll be with you that week of the combine. And then after that, it goes on to the players with their individual workouts, right, at their pro days. Then teams kind of behind the scenes, and we'll get a lot of information, which teams are going in and going to the area where the player played his college to do the private workouts. Which players are going to NFL facilities to do, they can't work them out at their facilities, but they work them out on the board. Kind of get a little bit of time with them to interview them and all of that. And then once that whole process is done, we get into mid-April, and it's just like ramping up, information everywhere, some mock drafts, some buzz, and all that stuff. So that's the process leading up to the last week in April, 2025 NFL Draft, and we'll be in Green Bay with you too. I don't even know if our producer Dan Comer knows that we're going, but we're going. All right? I don't know if the Ringer or Spotify know that we're going. So we'll be there too. So stick with us throughout this entire process. Thank you for watching. It's been an awesome turnout in terms of the audience and people watching the show this week. So happy and pleased with the numbers and truly appreciative of everyone out there who's tuning into the show. So that's the backdrop. Today was day 3 of practice. And let's just start here, man. Like we promised everyone who's tuned in day 1, day 2, that we'd get to kind of the quarterbacks and what we saw. Let's start with you, Muench. What did you see from the quarterbacks and what stood out?
Well, it was interesting. I didn't see a lot of reps for Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. I thought we were going to get more reps. Man, he made the most of his opportunities. I mean, I think it was his first rep during the team period going in. And, man, he drops back in the pocket, steps up, keeps his eyes downfield, rips one right down the middle to the Arkansas wide receiver, Isaac Tesla. And it just so comfortable. I mean, the way he moves around the pocket, the way he delivers the ball, the way he gets out on time. He had a couple of throws to the front pylon of the right end zone that I thought the receiver should have made plays on, and they dropped. Again, very calm in the pocket, gets the ball out on time. He's accurate. And I know I've said it all week. I'm going to say it again. I love the way he moves. I love the way he moves around the pocket. I love the way he can make plays with his feet. I thought, again, not a lot of reps, which was interesting to me. Maybe they want to see more of the other three quarterbacks today, but made the most of his opportunities.
I'm interested to see him in the game because I thought he steadily got better each and every day this week. I thought the first day, we talked about it, the first day, all the quarterbacks, brand new receivers, installing plays, new verbiage, kind of getting their feet wet. I thought the second day was his best day for Jackson Dart specifically. I just thought the command he had with the football, on time with his throws, layering the ball the way you expect a potential first-round quarterback or top 50 pick at quarterback, whatever he winds up being, to do. Today we saw some flashes of it. It was not like a heavy workload for him, but I think steadily throughout the week, and this is what I went into a whole rant yesterday about, it's not one specific trait that you come out here and you're wowed by. It's kind of the complete package and the command he has, and everything's above average to good in terms of his physical traits. His size is good. His arm strength is good. His mobility is good. It's not Lamar Jackson's mobility. It's not Josh Allen's arm. But like when you combine all of it and then the experience he has, the improvement he made on tape from 2022 and 2023 to 2024, where he was carrying the offense. He was making more NFL throws. I see on tape, and I just watched, what was it, South Carolina was one of the two tapes that I watched, and LSU, I think, was the other most recently. And I'm just seeing a guy who's at the line of scrimmage, who's making decisions, setting protections, knows where I'll just give you a small example. There was one play against LSU, right? Sets the protection. He understands. It wasn't a hot, but he understood that his left tackle is going to be in a difficult matchup against the defensive end. So on his drop, he just subtly slides to the right. And sure enough, that left tackle got pushed back a little bit, was giving way a little bit. And that little subtle movement to the right that he predetermined by setting his protection gave him just that extra split second for his receiver to break open, the ball to be out on time. Those are things you don't always get to see from college quarterbacks, right? And I think that comes with playing a lot of ball, with being a coach, with being with a coach in Lane Kiffin, who, love him or hate him, he knows how to coach quarterbacks. And he's been doing it a long time. Some really good places like USC, like Tennessee, Ole Miss, stint in the NFL. Like, he's just been around the game a lot. So he has a lot to impart upon Jackson Dart. So I saw just a lot of the positive things you would expect to see, even though people aren't going to come out of here and be like, this is unbelievable what we saw from this first-round quarterback. It's not that, but it just was really steady and really positive throughout the week. I'm excited, though. I started this by saying I'm excited about seeing it all come together in the game because with all of those things I just mentioned, also you've got a quarterback who can create with his feet.
Right.
And now we get in the game, and I've said this before, during the week, if you're a mobile quarterback, that element of your game kind of gets put aside. It's like, all right, put that on pause for now. We're going to really focus on 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drops, timing in the passing game, getting the ball out, pocket passing, all those things, right? But now you go in the game and you've worked all those kinks out and you understand the offense and you show command, and now he can add that element of the mobility with it. And I'm excited to see that all come together on Saturday here in Mobile.
So has he done enough to make himself quarterback 3 going into the combine?
We can have that bullshit conversation. I mean, we can, and we can
get off the fence.
Yeah, we can get some some viral clip about he's not QB 3, he's QB 2. It's not like, it's about what your expectation is for a player. Did he meet it or exceed it this week so far? I would say he at least met it, and I think kind of maybe didn't exceed it, but like I had a high bar. So if you meet that, that's great.
Agreed.
And so this process continues, and I just mentioned the steps in it. Like what he does at the combine, is that going to matter where he gets drafted? No, I don't think so. But when he's interviewing at the combine and he's interviewing, when teams pull him aside, when teams fly into, to Ole Miss's campus and they're hanging out in the Grove and they're getting to know him. And when he goes to the NFL facilities, and some teams, we've talked to Eric DaCosta, the year they drafted Lamar Jackson, nobody knew except one media member, and Eric denied it basically. And so, there's a lot that's going to go on behind the scenes. And you think back to even last year, Bo Nix, right? Sean Payton came out and said it was throw 17 or 7, whatever it was, at his pro day, I think, where he's like, yeah, this is my guy, which sounds ridiculous, but it's not the 7 or 17 plays, whatever that number was, that changed his mind. It's seeing him live, the way he's moving, to match up with what we already know. And when it starts to, and you just see the way he's carrying himself and those sorts of things. So we don't know. There may be a team already who's like, this is our guy. I've told you about Brett Veach, right? Spent some time doing the preseason. Sounds like some guys behind us are pretty fired up. The practice is over this week, right? But Brett Veach, when Mahomes was I think a freshman, or his first year as a starter, He saw him and went down to Andy Reid's office and was like, this is my guy. This is our guy. He's the guy who's going to take us to another level. And he's like, Brett, he's not eligible for 2 years. So you don't know which teams are there yet on these quarterbacks. For me, I think that this is going to be an intriguing race. I don't see a whole bunch of difference in terms of the potential value and what you could provide at the quarterback position in the NFL between Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jackson Dart. I just don't. And so there's a lot of information still to gather. There's more tape to comb through. And as we get closer to the end in April, I'm going to be definitive on it. But right now, we're moving forward in the process.
Love it.
All right. Thank you.
Fair.
Fair and balanced is what I try to be, but it's not easy for me.
I want to see.
I mentioned the mobility, right? And I've said all week, Jalen Milroe is going to, I think, benefit most from being able to uncork that mobility at the game on Saturday, and has not had the best week this week, because it's everything that he's still developing is what has been featured this week. So, of course, it's not going to be this shining moment, the first 2 days of practice. But I saw Jalen Milroe make strides today, man.
It was great.
It was really good to see, because, we're not the only ones saying that he struggled with his accuracy. Seems like he's swimming a little bit. Not sure where to go with his eyes on certain things. Threw the interception to Kaiser yesterday. Didn't see the linebacker dropping. We've all seen it. But what's important is our guys improving. And I think in day 3, we saw Jalen Milroe improve. And I saw it in a guy who, even in the red zone, right? Red zone, or if I'm on the sideline inside Hancock Whitney Stadium with the press box behind me, they're going into the right side. And I'm watching, and it's not a significant, it wasn't even team. It was, I think, a 7-on-7 drill going in, but quick slant. And it wasn't all of a sudden he makes a throw, and it was, anyone who's a golfer, it's like that. You get on the driving range and you just get your pitching wedge or something, just kind of that easy stroke, kind of just relax, no pressure on you. You haven't shanked 5 balls yet, so your mind's clean. That's what I saw, was more of that relaxed stroke, right? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And that was early. And then I saw more and more of that throughout the practice. And so that shows to me that he's getting coaching and working with guys who are saying, let's take a little bit heat off of the easy throws. Let's make them catchable. And with that, maybe you can kind of, take a little, just relax when you're in your throwing motion. And you're so sweet with that deep ball, because it's just this hand-eye touch feel thing that he has that is phenomenal. And so let's apply some of that, those sensibilities and that hand-eye coordination, that feeling, to the shorter throws. And we saw that today a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, the big thing for me was the decisiveness. I felt like he's been holding onto the ball a little bit too long, a little unsure about where to go with it. Today it was out. It was on time. He was getting it to receivers quickly. The decisiveness was much better today. And then when you add the fact that he was continuing to throw a good deep ball, and I still think his shorter to intermediate passes are a little too firm. but it wasn't as bad today.
Yep.
It wasn't just the absolute fastballs that he's been throwing, I think, earlier in the week. He took a little bit more off of it. I think he can still make strides in that area. But again, the decisiveness today, and I do wonder if the fact that there was red zone and there was maybe a stressing of when you're in the red zone, you got to get the ball out, man. Windows close quickly. You got to get it out. Maybe that brought the best out of him in terms of that element of his game.
And I just remind everyone, too, like, Lamar Jackson was not a great passer coming out of Louisville. He just wasn't. Josh Allen, for as strong as his arm was, I mean, he didn't complete 60% of his throws, and there were some throws that he made even here at the Senior Bowl where it's like, whoa.
Yep.
You know, you got a first-round, McShay, you got a first-round grade on this guy? I'm like, yeah. You know, like, Jalen Hurts is another guy.
Right.
So, like, the mobility factor you have, and we've said this before, and I'll keep saying it throughout the process, when you bring that level of mobility, you know, Lamar had it Lamar's like the elite. He's the standard when it comes to mobility. Josh Allen, a different kind of mobility, combination of athleticism, but also the strength to extend plays. Jalen Hurts, his mobility, like, those are three guys that just popped in my head, and guys that came in the league at a lower than ideal level of consistency with their ball placement, had the mobility to, early in their career, get out of plays. You know, you're not forced then to make a throw that you're not comfortable making. You learn to decide on which ones you're going to let rip, and also to extend plays when you kind of haven't processed it and you don't have all the answers yet. So Jalen's got that going for him, and then some with the mobility. And so, again, excited to see progress from him on the third day of practice, and really excited to see what he does in the game. Like, you know,
keep it rolling.
Yeah, keep it rolling. Bring some of the things that we saw in terms of his touch and his timing today, and bring that into the game, and now be able to uncork that unbelievable mobility. And so that should be a positive. When we look back on this week, it should be a positive from Jalen Milroe, even though it started out very much negatively. Two other guys I want to get to quickly, and we're not going to make this a quarterback show. But Dillon Gabriel, man, I haven't been up and down on his play necessarily, but, like, I guess, I don't know, it's just a thing I've got going on here. He had that, like, 79 miles an hour in the Zebra Technology initial ball velocity, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's like 12 miles an hour faster than Josh Allen and a couple other guys with elite arm strength that threw at the combine. And so I saw that, and I'm like, nah, he doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. And I reported yesterday, again, he doesn't have Josh Allen's arm. And for the third day in a row, I'll report that he does not have Josh Allen's arm. But I saw a couple throws yesterday where I was like, I'm not sure where I am on his arm strength yet, because there are some throws where it's like, and then there's some throws, like a deep out he threw yesterday in practice, and it kind of got away from him and flooded it a little bit. But I think it just came off his hand wrong. And I was watching him today. For what it's worth, and arm strength isn't the most important thing, as long as you have a baseline, and then if you don't have great arm strength, you better be able to get the ball out on time. He's got a good arm, man.
Right.
He does. Like, I've been as the week's gone on and seen more of a catalog of throws live. We've all seen them on tape, but live, I mean, the more I think I said I wasn't sure, like, comparing him versus Tua. I think he's got a stronger arm than Tua. I don't think. He has a stronger arm than Tua.
Which is great news for him, because coming into the week, you weren't sure about that. I wasn't sure about that. I think that was a question mark for Dillon Gabriel, was how strong was the arm? And now that we're trying to figure out, we know it's stronger than we thought, and really how strong is it? That's a good sign for him. It's
very
gone
good.
From maybe a potential red flag to, I think we're okay here.
Yeah.
And we might actually be good here.
Yeah, he's undersized. Like, you see it. But there are guys who have been Tua's not the biggest quarterback, but he's taller. Obviously, Russell Wilson is kind of like the standard for, 5'10" guys can do it. And Dillon checked in at
5'10".
Yeah, 5'10". So 5'10" and a half. So and I think I could be wrong, but I want to say, what was it? 5'10" and 3/8 inches for Russ. But anyway, so it's somewhere in that same range. My point being, he's got a lot to overcome, but I think the arm strength thing is not going to be a concern, and that's a positive too. Last thing I want to get to, Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, man.
He got better every day.
Yeah.
I was encouraged. He's not. We're not talking about a first rounder or a second rounder or maybe even a third rounder, but there's a guy who could be a backup in the league with the combination of some of his mobility and extending, and the timing that I saw from him and getting the ball out in time and layering some throws, some sideline throws, placing it right where you want it placed. It wasn't this like blow you away week, but he helped himself this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey for him. I mean, he started off at Oregon, then he went to Texas Tech, ended up at Louisville. He had a really hard time staying healthy. But when I look at him and just watch the tape and you take away the injury history and you look at his tape, good frame, good arm talent, and I like the way the ball comes out of his hands, and he can move around a little bit, like you said. I mean, he's not a scrambler. We're not talking about an elite talent in terms of athletic ability, but he can move around a little bit. I was excited to see it. It might be maybe a guy that starts in someone's practice squad and then kind of works himself in, but I think he's improved his stock, for lack of a better way of saying it, this week.
The McShay Show is brought to you by FanDuel. Every pass, every play, every prop, it's Super Bowl 59, and it's all happening on FanDuel. Bet on America's #1 game with America's #1 sportsbook any way you want. I'm talking spreads, live bets, over-unders, player props, special props, and so much more. As I look at these early lines, I kind of like this same game parlay. You ready? Saquon Barkley. You're telling me this Super Bowl is going to happen? Super Bowl 59 with the season Saquon's had, and he's not going to be an anytime touchdown scorer? No way. So let's start with Saquon Barkley, and then Juju Smith-Schuster. Has anyone else noticed? This guy's becoming a real serious part of the offense for the Chiefs. Over 1.5 receptions. Let's get that together in the same game parlay. I'm looking at FanDuel right now. It says plus 184. Let's take that from them. Plus, to make the Super Bowl even sweeter, new customers can score $200 when you make your first bet. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/McShay and bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Must be 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Where are you with the rest of today? What did you see that stood out? I don't want to go through position by position. It wasn't as long or a physical practice as Wednesday was, but there was a lot to take from it. Where are you with some things that just jumped out that were important to you that you saw?
I thought, some of the defensive linemen today jumped out to me. I know you just said just not to do positions, but that's really the group that I saw. We talked about Toledo defensive tackle Darius Alexander. I just love the versatility. He can come off the edge, and then he can really rush between the tackles. And when you look at these teams that want these NASCAR rush packages, you're talking about a guy who has 34-inch arms and great quickness. And when you put that against an interior offensive lineman, that can be a real problem. And then the Central Arkansas edge, David Walker doesn't have those kind of tools, man. He's less than 6'1". He's shorter than 6'1". He's got 31 3/4-inch arms, but man, is he explosive. And he uses that naturally low center of gravity to get under guys and move guys, and he's relentless. I mean, you talk about the production, and again, I know it's at Central Arkansas, but 63 tackles for loss and 31 sacks over the past 3 seasons. I mean, the guy put up numbers. You want guys who are at that level to dominate, and man, did he dominate. So he's flashed all week, and I thought he had his best day today.
I spent some time down with the defensive line for the second practice, the American practice, and just watching them go through drills with the defensive line coach. I thought it was also to go through the bags. They were doing like hand-to-hand combat stuff, going through the bags. And Jason Taylor was down there. It was kind of fun seeing him make a comment or two. His son is obviously here, Mason Taylor, the tight end from LSU. And some things jumped out, right? And some of it's just even like body type or hand quickness and all that stuff. But just watching the 2 Ole Miss edges, Princely Umanmielen, he's quicker than Ivy, his teammate. He's more fluid. He's got more suddenness.
They're different kind of edges, right?
Yes.
One's like a 3-4 outside linebacker guy. That's Princely.
Yep.
And then Jared Ivey's more of the defensive end who can kick inside to rush the pass.
100%. watching Muench, he just super quick hands. But Ivy a little bit more violent with his hands, okay? Right. Both of those guys, they're just good. They're good football players. They really are. But I see some tightness in Ivy.
Right.
Yeah, bigger in the role he plays, but there's a little bit more tightness in his game.
He's about 20 pounds heavier than Princey.
Exactly. So
Princey's longer, though, by the way. He's got 34.25-inch arms, Princey does.
Yeah, which is huge for an edge rusher against those offensive tackles. Tim Smith is a grown-ass man.
I'm glad you're bringing him up, man.
He is just watching him in drills and his lower body and the thickness, and we're not talking about a guy who's going to be a pass rusher who's going to come in. But you talk to me about day 3, I'm a defense that wants to plug gaps, and I need some physical grown-ass men in there. Tim Smith's a guy who's going to play some ball for a little while.
As a 4-eye, the
yes.
guy that has the inside shade of the offensive tackle on a base 3-man front, you could do a lot worse than Tim Smith. And that's, it's great to get down there and see his body type, see how big he is, because the guys who are going to show out here are the guys, the Mike Greens from Marshall, the Shamar Stewarts from Texas A&M, the guys who are super explosive and excel at getting after the quarterback. But there's a role for these defensive linemen who are stout and tough against the run.
Yeah,
we got the cruise ship taking off.
We got a cruise ship taking off. We got players screaming because their happy practice is over this week. But we'll forge on.
We overcome the adversity.
I also thought Omar Norman Lott stood out more than anyone. Tennessee defensive lineman. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is he's shorter. He's shorter. Like when you watch him, it's always interesting to just watch them and compare body types and who they are. Shorter than the rest of those guys. Thick trunk and like middle and quads and thighs. He's just thickly built. But my goodness, he is quick and got snap in his hands. And what I loved, certain guys become the leader after just 3 days.
Yeah.
And you're talking about dudes that he's hanging out with, right? Down on the defensive line. Talking about Dallin Walker from Kentucky, who's 6'7", 340. Talking about Walter Nolan, who's going to be a first-round pick from Ole Miss. The 2 other Ole Miss guys we just mentioned. Grown-ass man, Tim Smith from Alabama. Kyle Conor. But you watch in these drills, and he's the one who's kind of setting the tone with not just with his words, but getting there first every rep, flying off the snap even when they're individuals.
You're hearing the coaches say, "Good job, Omar. Good job, Omar. Good job, Omar."
Finishing the bag drill by by almost diving on top of that final bag. Little things that you watch and you recognize. You're okay. He doesn't look as good physically, off the bus, as some of these other guys. But now I get why he's just as productive, if not more productive. Now I get why he's constantly being talked about as a guy who's emerging this final season at Tennessee. You can see what goes into that. We can all see the tape, but what goes into that? And it was cool to see Omar Norman Lott today. You could just I mentioned Kyle Conor yesterday.
Yep.
As kind of the edge guy that was setting the tone and going back and working on every single pass rush move after with the defensive line coach. And with Omar Norman Lott, it was the same thing for the kind of the interior defensive lineman today. Other positions, what else stood out to you? Because I'm going to mention one guy that I really liked.
Go ahead.
Billy Bauman, the safety from Oklahoma. 5'0", 198. Means he's 5'9" and 3/4 and 198 pounds. Not the biggest, probably not going to be the fastest. Again, coming off the bus, you're not like, ooh, it's Cam Chancellor, or that's. But you watch him on the field, and every single drill, he just is always around the ball.
Right.
Instinctive, and just he knows how to close. He takes the right angles. He just does every little thing right. And I got to talk to him, and I've never mentioned names, but talked to a guy who's been around him, okay, and has experience in personnel departments, and the stories he was telling today about Billy Bowman and the fact that he literally walks around the football facility with a notebook that has color coded and goes through every single rep and the preparation that he goes through for each game, and the leadership that he brought to the table for Oklahoma's defense. It was actually pretty good. It was just the offense put him in terrible situations. So just to hear that kind of thing and to hear him say, I'm not saying he's going to be Brian Branch, but he's for us or here for Oklahoma was kind of Brian Branch.
There
and
were
has
similarities.
a lot of similarities. And we've seen now with like Dax Hill, Mike Sanderstrill, Brian Branch, guys that don't get drafted in the top 20, 25, that go early in the second round. And I think Jahdae Barron is a different kind of version of that, too, for Texas, and we'll get to him later. But there are a couple guys in this class in a league that is so reliant on versatility in the secondary and guys that can be on the field and play different roles on different downs in different pass run situations. These guys are becoming more and more important. So Bowman all week has been making plays and just around the ball, and I think this has been it's been an important week for him. But I also, in hearing the stories behind the scenes, don't be surprised when we get to late March and early April if you're starting to see him climb up boards because people are catching wind that unbelievable interview. You should hear what he's, how advanced he is in his preparation. Like, these are the guys that move up. It's not just the 40-yard dash freaks and the combine winners and the workout warriors. It's guys when coaches actually get to sit with them and meet with them, they respect what they're doing.
I'll give you another player, I think, from that school, and that's Oklahoma State inside linebacker Nick Martin. 6 foot, 222 pounds, 30 and 5/8 inch arms. So not a big guy, short arms, but man, he flies around. Instinctive, vocal, always around the football, competes in coverage. I thought he had a really good week. Again, another guy that you look at and doesn't necessarily check a lot of boxes in terms of that big size, but has played really well.
Wide receivers. I just want to get to a few that, and I've kind of had an up and down relationship with Jaden Higgins, and I just thought the first day it wasn't.
On again, off again.
Such high expectations. I thought there were a few moments in the first day of practice where I didn't think it was up to his standard. Okay.
Right.
He has shut me up. His last 2 practices have been outstanding, and it was a little bit more of it today. He is a big dude. I mean, he's 6'3 and a half, 217 pounds, long arms, and watching his refinement and how smooth he is. I'm trying to think of the quote some personnel guy said to me. He's a smooth drink, not a drink of water, but a smooth flowing water or something like that. It's like watching water flow, something like that. And I'm just looking at him like, yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Because when you watch him, you don't think 6'3 and a half until it's like contested versus a smaller DB. Okay. And as the week went on, I had a greater appreciation for his movement skills. I think he's a guy who absolutely helped himself. And then while they're so different, his teammate, Jalen Noel, also had a similar type of week.
That name came up a lot in conversations.
A lot,
yeah,
right?
It did.
Because, he's 5'09", He's 5'9" and 3/4. But he's thickly built. He's sturdy. He doesn't get – so when you look at the smaller receivers, right, you're always looking for and partially expecting that there's going to be these knocked off of route moments, a lot of them. Tez Johnson has been flat out freaking phenomenal this week, right? He's 156 pounds, though. The Oregon wide receiver is a superstar this past year. But he's had the shoulder injury. He got knocked out of the Ohio State game, came back in, showed a lot of toughness. But when you look at the smaller receivers, you want to see durability, obviously, but you can't predict that necessarily. And the thing that you can, though, predict is based off the tape you watch is, are they getting knocked off their routes? Can they get off the line of scrimmage? And even when they do, within that 5 yards, are they struggling? And then when there's that contact that's kind of that in-between contact that gets allowed,
right,
are they getting knocked off their routes? And then when the ball's in the air and you have those contested moments, do they have any chance? Well, with Tez Johnson, unfortunately, the answer in a lot of those situations is no. And so he's got to absolutely win with his quickness and explosiveness, and he did that a lot this week. And he can do that if he's paired with the right offensive coordinator and play caller who can design it for him, okay? With Noel, I don't know that you have to design it as much because he doesn't get knocked off as much. And he's got this sturdy build, and he's so damn polished as a route runner. And he plucks in transitions. And you talk to receiver coaches and really good scouts, that pluck in transition for a slot receiver is so critical because you're working so often in that quick game from the slot, and how quickly you can go from here to there, catching the ball and transition up the field can depend on, is it a 5-6 yard gain or is it 9 to 15, you know?
He's great with the ball in his hands. As a return man after the catch, I think he's a guy you can get involved in the run game if you want to. I think he's a guy. He's one of those dudes you want to get in space. You have an all-satellite team. You used to have an all-satellite team.
I have one.
Okay.
Even last year when I sat out, I made one for myself.
So I think he's a candidate. We'll see.
Yes.
That's always a great group. So I think he's a candidate for that group.
And another guy in that similar mold is Restrepo, right?
I was going to say Restrepo, man.
Right?
Tough.
Like, watching him this week, Xavier Restrepo from Miami, he's not the biggest cat, right? What's his official height? 5'09", so 5'9", 3/8, almost 5'9.5", but he's 200 pounds. And he's thickly built. He doesn't get knocked off. And I was talking to one scout who's like, he's just always open, right? He's just always open. And he's just making play after play. None of it's flashy. None of it's vertical. He's not tracking a deep, but it's like we're in a bind. When we get into team and things get dicey and the bullets start to fly, who's going to be the guy that I trust to get open and get me out of trouble? It's Restrepo.
Absolutely.
And it is on tape, and to see it here confirms, like, yeah, it's not just ACC competition or whatever you want to.
He's a chain mover.
He's a chain mover.
Right.
And there's a place for that. There's a necessity for that, you know?
I totally agree.
So that's that.
Jalen Royals caught the ball well today.
Yeah.
No, he's kind of had a quiet week. I get
yeah,
it.
I kind of don't.
I get it. I like his build. I know he's sub 6 foot, but he's put together pretty well. I like the way he caught the ball. He's still a player I'm excited about going forward.
Yeah. And maybe, and here's the other thing. We fly back, well, I fly back tonight. Muench, don't even ask about Muench.
Like 6 o'clock flight in the morning?
Yeah, him and Daniel, I guess, like all sorts
Okay,
of, they're going out clubbing in Mobile tonight. So you get back, and now we got Friday, we got all weekend, the game's on Saturday, we'll get the tape of the game, but you get tape of the practices too. And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I saw every rep, because you have to have conversations. Went on Rich Eisen today and missed about 20 minutes. Like, there's stuff that I didn't see, and hopefully you caught the things I didn't see, but we didn't see every play. So I absolutely, and every year I go back and study the practice tape, and it's, I missed that. Oh, shit, maybe he played better. Or, now I get, whatever it is, there's more to gain, but this is, 3 days of hyper focus on what we were able to see.
Yeah, for me, I don't finish a report without going back and throwing on the tape and watching the reps that they had at the Senior Bowl. If they're here, I'll go back and watch what they did here before I finalize that report. And some of it's just as simple as, did they play different positions? Did he kick inside? We talked about the North Dakota State interior offensive lineman, Gray Zabel. Where did he play? He played center and guard. That's not what he did in college. Those guys you want to see. Where did they play? What did they do? Some running backs didn't catch the ball very much in college. Well, they have to catch the ball at the Senior Bowl. It's those kinds of things that are great when you're going back and looking at the tape.
It's the most important part of the process, because this is the last time we get to see these prospects in pads, competing and playing the actual game of football. The rest of it is important, but it's not in pads. It's not actually playing football. It's in gym shorts. It's working out. It's 40-yard dashes. It's vertical jumps. It's stuff that, yes, it's part of the whole algorithm that you put together when you try to figure out what works, and you get these predictive analysis and all that stuff. And the scouting community is embracing it, some places more than others, but as a whole, embracing it more now as part of the process, whether it's just a tiny bit or whether it's an increasing bit, it's absolutely part of the process. But this is literally the last time you get to see them in pads competing, playing the game of football. And with that, I want to transition real quickly. The Senior Bowl is a privilege, man. Like, this is a privilege. And I think sometimes we forget, and people forget, it's a privilege for the media. It's a privilege for agents. It's a privilege for prospects, okay? Not everyone gets invited. There's a whole hell of a lot of players playing in other all-star games that want to be here. There's a whole hell of a lot of players not playing in all-star games that would die to play in one of these. There's a whole hell of a lot of players that want to be draft picks that just physically can't be here. So I say that because there's been a lot of negative buzz and stuff in the last 24 hours, and I just want to kind of clear the air, okay? it is not groundbreaking that a few first-round players, after a couple great days of practice, decide to take off and finish the week, okay? But there's a certain level of respect and there's a certain way to handle things. If you're one of those players, and especially if you're one of their agents, because you work for those players, and don't forget that. If you're an agent, you have a job, and it's to best service your client. Do you think it's in the client, or in this case, the prospect's best interest to leak information that your player that you're representing is not going to practice the rest of the week, that he had 2 great days, did what he needed to do for himself, he got what he needed out of this game and took it and is about to take off, and you're going to leak that information to a media member instead of making the first people that understand and know the situation, Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl people, who have spent all year long getting this ready, so it's an amazing event for your players, for you, for NFL teams, for the media. It's not. And so if you're a player who has an agent who decided that it was a better idea to call someone in the NFL media and tell them and have Jim Nagy and the Senior Bowl staff maybe find out from somebody else that you might not be back the rest of the week, is that the agent you want representing? And if you're that agent, are you doing the best thing for your client? Those are the questions I would ask. Second thing is, like, I got a list last night. Muench got a list last night. Our producers got lists last night. And when I got the list and passed it on to the people in our group, it was for your eyes only, so that we know the roster, so that our unbelievable camera people and production people can make sure that they're focusing on the guys so that we can highlight them best and put together the best show we can possibly provide to help service these players and our audience. And so when we get that information that there are a few guys that are going to take off early, and again, not groundbreaking, it's happened before, it's my duty to make sure that our group knows this is for us, this is not to break news. We don't need more followers from this. We can get followers from doing the right thing, okay? So if you're in the media and you get that information, I don't know, because I know there was one person who got that information and made sure that the right people had that information. There are other people who got it and tried to service themselves with it. So again, I'm going on a rant, but let's not forget, if you're part of this whole thing, there's a right way to do it, and let's treat it with some respect. And I think if you start to do that, and people will kind of appreciate that, and everyone will gain and benefit from this unbelievable, wonderful game that we all love, the game of football, and then especially the Senior Bowl in this case. Yeah, and for players too, I get it, man. You've had a long season, the season's extended, and you're here, and you're trying, and you go out and you make a decision to play, and absolutely, people are thrilled that you played, and you played really well on Tuesday and Wednesday, and yeah, you don't have much left to prove, and I understand that. Walter Nolan was here. He was practicing his ass off today. He's going to be a first-round pick. Josh Connerly's going to be a first-round pick. He was here today. Thomas, cornerback, Florida State, was awesome on Monday. Or Tuesday, awesome on Wednesday. He was also awesome today. He's going to be a first-round pick. So, I'm not saying if you come here, you have to. I'm not like one of those old school dudes, okay? But I am saying, think about it, because when I talk to 3 different personnel people today, they get it. We've all been through this together. We understand the culture. We understand the situation. We understand that everyone's here, that everyone has their own interests here, but also that part of your own interests, and don't be, I guess if you're a prospect and you're listening to this, or you're a family member or a friend of a prospect, remember this and pass this information along. There's an NFL scout, there's a general manager, there's a head coach that was expecting to have a job interview with you or your friend or your family member, and you just left, and you had an agent who said, yeah, we got to go. You had 2 great days. You're a first-round pick. You're a lock. You're top 15, top 20. But there are people here who, part of their schedule tonight is we got 15 minutes, 11 minutes now with an individual prospect, and he's just not showing up for a job interview. And I'm not saying it's going to affect any one of these guys. I'm not. But let's start thinking about how that people are taking that information. And so a scout can be frustrated, and again, it's not going to affect the draft stock, but if you commit to something, there are certain guys that are here that committed to it and they're going to see it through, and there's certain guys that didn't, and so that could get weighed in at some point. All right, my rant's over. Sorry.
It's well put. No, it's
Yeah.
well put.
Couple more things, important things. Actually, and it's not going to be short. Nothing we do here is short. But I do want to get to some speed stuff that I thought was really interesting, and then I want to finish up kind of wrapping up this week a little bit and give some context. And I got some really awesome notes. I can't share all of it, but I want to start the conversation on certain things, and we'll finish with that and some really good stuff. The zebra technology, we talked about it all week. It's unbelievable. The fact that the Senior Bowl has teamed up with Zebra. We got the miles per hour. We got the fastest speed. Have you seen the fastest decelerations showing DBs and wide receivers who can decelerate the fastest, which means get in and out of their breaks, or as a receiver or for a cornerback can in their pedal all of a sudden get and stop. The cutting and stopping and going. There's all sorts of numbers, but let's just go kind of top level for now off of the stuff that we've seen. I'm going to give you the fastest players by miles per hour on day 2, which was the day that was the most physical exertion of all these practices. So really good indicator. How about this one? The fastest guy on day 2 in practice, both practices, Darian Porter from Iowa State.
Yeah, Toolsy.
Toolsy? 6'2",
I know you're going,
almost 6'2 and a half, 109. That's a 6'2 and a half, basically 200 pound. He's 197 cornerback with length, who was 22.17 miles per hour.
Yeah,
that's almost 2 full miles per hour faster than the next guy. Also, by the way, hey, nice job, Campbell. Nice job, Iowa State. 2 fastest guys here on day 2 were Iowa State dudes. Jalen Noel, who we talked about earlier. 20.8, let's call it, okay? After that, here's a player I'm excited to watch more tape. I know he's fast on tape. I've seen it. But I didn't know, there's a top 5 list I'm going to go through. There's 3 cornerbacks, 1 wide receiver, and there's a linebacker. Shamar James from Florida.
Right.
He was at 20.71. That's 6/100ths of a second behind a wide receiver, Jalen Noel, who's the fastest wide receiver here on day 2 for the Senior Bowl. Pretty impressive. And I'll round it out. Jalen Smith from USC, a cornerback, was at 20.67. And Quincy Riley's another player who we had conversations today, and,
yes.
and scouts are kind of getting a little bit intrigued. He was at 20.41 miles per hour, the cornerback from Louisville. And, you look at his history, he's going to have to become a little bit more, we call them buffet tacklers, pick and choose sometimes. But great when the ball's in the air, the ball skills, the ball production, coverage skills. Now we know he's one of the top speed guys. Starting to
come together.
Yeah, come together in terms of the evaluation for him. One other dude I want to mention, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but Bashel Tutin, right?
Yeah.
The running back from Virginia Tech. I think he was the fastest of all the running backs, and this is a good group. I mean, this is a group that includes, don't forget,
Quadzilla.
I wrote quads. You should see this guy's quads. I mean, he's exactly what you would think of with a back.
He looks like a running back.
But you add that and the really good tape and the fact I saw him catching the ball pretty well this week, and then the fact that he's running 20 or I don't have the exact number, but he's the fastest running back in this group in terms of the zebra on day 2. I'm not saying he's the fastest. He's going to run the fastest 40, but I thought that number stood out. Anything more on that, Muench? Are you good?
No, I'm good. That's good speed. Quincy Riley, I like to see him run that fast because that was one of the questions I had. I thought he was okay in that area. I didn't think he was going to run that well, so that's exciting for him.
All right, notebook stuff. I'll let you actually start because I've been on a heater.
Well, I think you've got all the
PSA. No, but I want now that we're looking back, we've had 3 days of practice. We're getting ready for the game. What are your takeaways? Don't you have to give me them all right now. We can go back and forth, but what are some of the takeaways that you'll remember from this week of practice and things, whether it's guys who are surprising that played better than expected, guys you can't wait to go back and watch tape on, guys that you wanted to see more, whatever it is, just some things that stood out to you.
I'll just reiterate this. I thought small schools won this week, and I thought in coordination with that, Jim Nagy's staff won. I mean, we've highlighted a number of small school players, and one that I'd like to point out because we did hear a little bit of buzz about him today is the Alabama A&M offensive tackle Carson Vinson, who has the longest arms of any of the offensive linemen here, who moves really well. He's a guy that I think that I'm very excited to watch more tape on him. I think he's really helped himself this week, and he's raw. Look, we saw that he's raw, but he competes. He didn't look like like a fish out of water. He didn't look like he was lost here. So I thought he had a great week. A guy that I would think that maybe flew under the radar and is a better athlete than I anticipated was the Nebraska defensive lineman Ty Robinson. We haven't talked about him at all.
No, we haven't.
He's a good player. The defensive lineman for Florida State, Josh Farmer. There's all these defensive linemen here. It's almost hard to get to all of them. The defensive lineman from Josh Farmer, I know we mentioned him because he's got that great length. I think he's got 35-inch arms. He had a great week. He's another guy that when we go back and look at him, where we have all of these talented defensive tackles. We're not even talking about the Mason Grahams of the world or the Kenneth Grants, the guys who weren't here. When you look at the guys that were here, I mean, stacking these guys, as we heard, getting them in the right buckets and then sorting those buckets is not going to be an easy task, and that's a great thing. It's not an easy task because these guys are all playing well and they're all making a push for where they should go.
Yeah, the small school offensive lineman thing was interesting because you got to remember this is the day and age of the transfer portal, and I'll never forget talking to Chip Kelly, and he was like, recruiting has changed for me. This is when he was at UCLA. He's like, recruiting has changed for me because it's no longer, and it was unfortunately in his mind because he loved bringing in prospects and developing them. But now it was like, maybe you should go to this smaller school. We'll keep an eye on you, and in a year or two, we'll come pluck you. Right. So with that as the backdrop, the fact that some of these guys didn't transfer, weren't plucked from an Alabama or an Ohio State, a Georgia,
Clemson, Oklahoma,
right? It's still pretty awesome that Jim Nagy and his staff are able to identify them, right? So you mentioned the Alabama A&M guy, right?
Right.
I was told today there's a chance he doesn't get out of the top 3 rounds. He doesn't get out of the third round.
Just when you look at the tools, the talent. Again, if you're an offensive line coach, we've talked about this recently, about now the coaches are getting more involved. They're going to get in the ear of whoever in the front office and say, look, man, like, that's a guy I can work with. I saw him down at the Senior Bowl. I saw him competing. I see the way he moves. I see that length. I see that size. Give me a chance.
Specifically, I was told, like, the wingspan is what is intriguing most teams.
Okay.
Like, obviously just about 6'7", 314, but 83 3/4 inch wingspan is the large. The second best was Logan Brown from Kansas, was 83 and a half, but everybody else is like 81,
right.
80, 79,
Yeah.
So that there were obviously other traits. We saw the energy he brought. We saw the improvement throughout the week. But like finding a physical trait that's unique, he's got that, and that was pointed out to me. The other thing was Greg Zabel.
Yeah.
I don't think I talked to an NFL scout or a person that had, whether it was an offensive line cross-check or was just there watching, that didn't mention Zabel as like the clear-cut winner. In fact, I talked to one personnel director today who was like, well, like, we don't even have to talk about Zabel. He's the obvious winner. Let's talk about some other guys.
Right.
So Greg Zabel from North Dakota State.
I'm convinced he's a starting center in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just convinced that he's a starting
and
center.
can play guard.
Right, who could play guard.
So
here's the thing about him.
Yep.
He moves like an offensive tackle. He's played offensive, and he moves like an offensive tackle. When you see the way he can power down against inside moves and the way he can mirror guys who are trying to beat him with quickness and side-to-side moves, that is easy for him when he's on the inside. If he had longer arms, he'd still be playing on the outside. So you're taking a guy that moves like those elite athletes on the outside, then has the quickness to really play center, the toughness, the smart, the competitiveness level.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he could have had a better week.
One more small school guy, Jacob Bayer, number 69, he was wearing this week, playing center from Arkansas State. It was interesting. I was reminded, and I actually had read this, but he came back this year and played 5 months removed from a torn ACL and came in, and people were like, his tape's not as good. Like, yeah, no kidding. He's 5 months removed from an ACL, but as the season progressed, he got stronger. And I was told to go back, and I haven't watched it yet, Arkansas State versus Bowling Green. And even the guy I talked to was like, listen, I know we're not talking about world beaters at Bowling Green, but how easy he made it look and how he's had a good week. And Jackson Slater, dominant. We talked about him yesterday. So you're talking about 4 small school offensive linemen that all showed up this week. And you got to remember, you're looking at helmets that say LSU, okay? They say Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, right? And you're going up against these dudes every day in practice. You're looking at helmets that say Michigan, Oregon, okay? Like, they didn't show an ounce of fear, those 4 guys. And in fact, we're competing and beating a lot of those guys who have bigger names from bigger programs. So that part was really cool. I don't want to get hung up on it, but I think we both appreciated that. A couple other things I want to jump to, and jump in anywhere you want.
Yep.
The tight ends, and I mentioned this in the open, scouts are getting excited about this group, really excited about
Talented
this group.
Deep.
Mason Taylor, there's some people that are in love with Mason Taylor, and not necessarily because he is, I think he's one of the biggest, one of the fastest, all those things, but you know exactly what you're getting with this guy and his love of the game, and obviously he's been in the game and it's in his blood. Jason Taylor, a Hall of Famer, but like you just know what you're getting, and he's going to be a damn good NFL starting tight end for a long time, and that doesn't get out of the top 50 picks, okay? That's the information that I'm getting. A lot of guys are intrigued with our guy Elijah Arroyo. The production is interesting. They're a lot of the same, like dog with a bone. We got to figure out, get some more information. But my goodness, can he separate? He's so smooth and athletic. Those are the reports I'm getting back today. So those are the 2 that people were really in love with. Fanning, the Bowling Green tight end. Look at the way he catches the ball. These are some of the things. I mean, look at the way he catches the ball. Every drill he shows up. His consistency. The guy is going to play. He's probably going to be a backup early in his career, but he's going to play in a rotation. I just really like that Fanning guy. So and then Ferguson, everyone agrees. Like nothing elite that jumps out, but he just shows up every time we're in team, every time we're in 7-on-7. He's separating, he's getting open, he's catching the football, and he's getting upfield. So those are 4 tight ends that I appreciated them. We've talked about all of them throughout the week. But when you're in Thursday is a little bit looser on the field. There's not as many scouts and personnel guys and directors and GMs. So the ones who are there, it's like people are talking more. There's not there's these crowds of people all around you, and people are opening up. And that was one of the first things that I noticed in these conversations I'm having. This is a good tight end group, and we don't even have Colson Loveland, who's going to be a first-round pick, probably in that 25 to 32 range, let's say. And we don't even have Tyler Warren, who could be a top 15 pick out of Penn State. So that was intriguing to me. Another name that keeps coming up, and I'm bouncing around here, and I'm doing it on purpose, because these are the conversations you're having, and you get all over the place. Travion Henderson, man.
It's interesting.
He's going early.
It's interesting.
Like, he might go first round early.
It surprises me a little bit.
Speed, explosiveness, and you want to know what scouts freaking love about this guy? The blocking. Mm-hmm. And the same thing, I was talking to a director of personnel today, and he was like, the blocking. And I was like, just like Zeke. He's like, exactly. He's like, you know what you're getting. You keep him on the field every single play. He doesn't have to come off the field. And it's like, yeah, he was in the rotation with Judkins, and Judkins is awesome too. People love Judkins, okay? But you see that speed and the way he cuts. And everyone I talk to, when it was come to, and it's not just this week, there's only a few, I don't want to oversell it. I think 3 different conversations I've had throughout the week. Somehow Henderson comes up. We're talking about this deep running back class. But every time I've talked to anyone about him, it's the same thing. Going to be a better NFL player than a college player in terms of production and consistency. Remember, he was dinged up, and now he's in a rotation last year. I think he's like his best football. He's kind of getting ready to peak, and teams recognize it. So in a class that we're talking about, we went through all the names yesterday. I'm not going to do it again. And we know that Ashton Ginty is the star, and he's going to be picked somewhere in the top probably 15, maybe because of running back need. He gets to 15, 20. I don't think he will. But Henderson could be RB2, and there's some buzz. I don't know, he's getting out of round 1, which I thought was fascinating.
That's fascinating. Look, I thought I didn't love him coming into this past season. I knew he was talented. The explosiveness, the juice is so easy to spot when you watch him on tape. It just jumps out right away. And then I thought he had an outstanding season this past year. I did. And both of those running backs, because I think Judkins deserves to be in this conversation too, when you look at that playoff run, both of them were willing to do literally whatever it took to win a football game. Whether it was they would be on the field at the same time. If they were blocking for each other, or there was pass pro, making a play in the passing game, I thought both of them were outstanding in that area. I think it's a very talented back class, and I'm interested to see. I think it could be a pick your flavor or choose your own flavor kind of a deal. That maybe some people will have Henderson higher than others. It'll be interesting to see if he goes that high. I don't have him quite as high, but I do think he had a great year. So I get the buzz.
Some cornerback notes. We talked about Quincy Riley and some of the conversation there and the speed with Quincy Riley coming out of Louisville. Azareye'h Thomas, I just fell in love with him live. The first time seeing him live for Florida State, the cornerback was wearing number 8 all week. The thing that, talking to scouts today, the confidence in press coverage and then the confidence when the ball's in the air. And we mentioned that both things on Tuesday, but to hear it now, there's a certain level of, and one guy was like, hey, I want you to literally watch the confidence in his movements and his eyes and the consistency, because that dude trusts himself in press. And that's hard to find. Right? It's hard to find at this level. You coach that in, you develop that over time, but he has absolutely no question he's going to win in press. And there's something to that, and it shows up in his play. And so I thought that was interesting. He and Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky, I think kind of across the board, the people we talked to, were the best two corners here in a really good group. Remember, Quincy Riley, we just talked about, Darian Porter,
right.
6'2 and a half, 200, almost 200 pounds. So there's a lot of talent there, but those are the two that jumped out. And Hairston specifically, when the ball's in the air.
Right.
Remember we were talking about the Bill Belichick, Nick Saban stuff we were reading through? And we literally had that list for 15 years of the critical traits, but just to kind of relook at it and two of the greatest defensive minds to ever coach college pro, and to see how important, how high up on the list when the ball's in the air. Confidence, production, when the ball's in the air. Do they panic? Is the speed not easy? Are they getting flustered? Or are they just calm and relaxed? And that's with Hairston. That's the thing that jumps out to people, is when the ball's in the air. And both of those guys, but Hairston especially.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to sort out this corner group because, it's a good problem to have. There's a ton of talent, but is Travis Hunter corner wide receiver? Benjamin Morrison coming off a serious injury. So what do we do with him?
So
right?
Two other guys that came up in conversation, as we're starting to kind of, just on the sideline and watching plays and just talking, two other guys came up in conversation. Because remember, we're talking about Bowman now from Oklahoma as kind of that nickel guy. And we're also talking about the two corners that we just mentioned, Thomas and Hairston, talking about Riley, talking about Porter. And the conversation immediately went to Jahdae Barron, right, from Texas. And he's next in line of that Dax Hill, that Mike Sandstrill, that Brian Branch of nickel corners. I'm not saying they're all identical, but kind of nickel guys with versatility.
Swiss Army knives.
Who are always around the football, right? And Jahdae's name kept coming up, and people just love him. I don't think he's getting out of the first round. And I wouldn't have said that maybe mid-season or towards the end. I just didn't know. So I'm obviously, the workouts are going to be important, more so the 40 and some of the speed numbers are more important at corner than any other position. So we'll see how that all plays out. But we knew Branch was one of the 20 best football players in that draft. He just happened to fall to pick 33 to Detroit, and they hit the lottery, right? So, and then the other guy was the Notre Dame corner, Benjamin, and people love him. But the durability stuff is going to be huge for him. I'll share the medical tests and the checks and maybe the medical rechecks at the combine are going to be huge because they love the player, but what's the concern going to be long term for that?
And then the East Carolina corner is in a similar position to Sean Revell. I really thought he had a chance to be this year's Quinyon Mitchell, that smaller school guy who was just an elite talent. I thought he had a chance to have a great year. I was hoping to see him here, and then he tore his ACL early on, so obviously that hasn't worked out. So sorting out, it's a good problem to have, right? It's a good problem to have when you have a ton of talent at corner. the problem, the issue for teams will be sorting them out, getting through the medical, the interviews. You know, what tape do you have? How much tape do you have this year? All of that stuff is going to come into play, but a lot of talent there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got pages of notes here. I think the defensive line too was the area that people really were. We talk about tight end, corner, but I think defensive line was the area that people were just thrilled with this week. Alexander's name kept coming up from Toledo. 99 UCLA kept coming up.
Oladejo.
Yeah, Oladejo. Farmer from Florida State. Another guy had a really good, kind of under the radar week, but people are like, Farmer. Do you see Farmer? So, I don't know. It's an awesome week.
We
could go on for hours.
It was a great week. It was a great. Jim Nagy and his staff put together a great roster. It was well-run practices. It was very competitive. A lot of juice every day. There was some UCLA, USC violence going on today. Guys scrapping.
Yep.
It's always good to see like those old the teams of their rivalries go against each other and get after it. See teammates go after it. Overall, it was a great week.
Yeah, it was. Now we get to go back. We'll study some of the practice tape. We'll watch the game on Saturday. We'll be back, I believe, Monday night. Is that right? Monday night, Tuesday morning. We'll let you know. We'll let you know on social media. But we're going to start a regular schedule. As I mentioned, we're going to be at the Combine. We're going to be at the NFL Draft come hell or high water. And we'll be with you throughout the entire process. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Seriously, this week it's our first trip on the road, the McShay Show. We appreciate you watching, appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on video or audio for Spotify, audio podcasts on Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. It's been a huge week for us. It's been a blast. And I hope we've proven to everyone, I'm looking over at Dan right now, I hope we've proven we can put a show on the road on. And I'm excited to do more of it. But again, thank you to everyone. Please click subscribe, download, all the stuff that they tell me to tell you to do. So we appreciate everyone, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.